Greetings, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Everything Went Black. This will be the final episode of 2024. I'm going to take the last couple weeks off. Got a bunch of family stuff going on that I need to attend to. And I just got to be honest with you guys, I'm a little burned out. So, what I have in store for you guys is a wrap-up episode with one of my dearest friends, Ralph Schmidt of the band Ultha, and also sometime co-host, fellow horseman. Our friendship has spanned decades, and I always look forward to speaking with Ralph, whatever the context is. Before we get going, I want to shout out my brothers, the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. Kicking things off, every other Monday, we've got Brandon Legion bringing us Horror Wolf 666. Also, be advised that the Abraxas Horn LP is now available. Brandon, myself, and Matt Prizzo have collaborated on this full-length onslaught of darkness. So check it out. Up next on Tuesday is the greatest extreme music podcast in the land. And of course, I'm referring to Into the Necrosphere, brought to you by Jackie Schmidt. Wednesday is the first day of double shots. We've got Everything Went Black, which you're listening to right now, as well as Iblis Manifestations. Thursday is Necro Thursday, where I return with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid. And it's also day one of Soul Knocks, for all things dark, esoteric, macabre, brought to you by Carl Hikera. Friday, Spitball Media comes at us, and that features Mike Scandato's brother, John Draper. Saturday's a day off, and now that we're in the festive holiday season, spend some time with your family, your friends, go out, buy gifts. We still have some time left. You know, Christmas is right around the corner. Sunday, Carl returns with Soul Knocks Day 2. Carl and I are in the middle of our collaboration known as Darkness Weaves, where we discuss the work of Carl Edward Wagner. And currently, we're doing the novel Bloodstone. If you enjoy the show, by all means, share it with your friends, give us likes, follow us on social media. Or if you want to take it one step further, you can join the Patreon. And for $1 a month, you get bonus content, which comes at you weekly in various forms. Every week I put something up there in Patreon. We've got some other content where Ralph Schmidt and I discuss weird fiction and cosmic horror in the Long Shadows sub-series. There's other stuff that's you can dig into that's on the Patreon. For $5 a month, you get bonus material plus early access to the regular shows. And for $25 a month, you can become a sponsor of the show. I'd like to welcome Dan on board, our most recent Patreon member. So thank you very much, Dan, for listening and joining the team, man. Really appreciate it. Hey, Ralph. So it's great that you're on again. It's been a while since we've actually spoken. So welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it's so good to be back. It's good to be talking to you. I mean, we always say that we want to keep in touch better and talk more, but then life just seems to get in the way, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's we are in pretty decent touch though, even if it's just over Messenger.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
it's not like you disappear from my life, for months at a time.
Dude, like if you're like no, like at this point in my life, you're like one of the people that would be really afraid to lose. So, like there's a lot of people that went and like so for some of them I don't care. But like there's maybe a handful of people that I would die for and you be like among the top five and so like you won't get rid of me.
Good, man. But
Yeah.
as time goes on and as people's lives go on, it's really amazing how small that circle gets too. It's like
Yeah, it is.
you and I both have a lot of acquaintances. Like we know a lot of people, but like
Yeah.
there's really a very, very short list of people that we're in touch with like on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's right. And it's yeah, and that's like I mean, we had phases where we were both like so caught up in all the shit that is going on in our lives that I remember like where we're like, oh shit, man, we need to talk again or we need to write. But now we're like, I think we're texting every other day probably.
Yeah.
But it's like just like I mean, I stepped away from the podcast thing completely for a
Hmm.
while and I also barely listen to anything anymore. It's just like I'm so shot with like hearing voices because it's just like this job, man, in school right now. People are losing their minds and the world is going crazy. So right now I'm pretty much living in my like listening to ambient music in my car. And yeah, it's just like I mean, I've been in touch with Brandon about Abraxas Horn and shit like this. I'm always like, oh man, I would love to do an episode with him again. I would love to
Sure.
talk to Carl again. And I mean, I saw Mr. Hulk, the UK African Hulk. I saw him, saw Jackie in summer, and that's always cool. But it's just like I don't know, man. It's like I don't even listen to wrestling podcasts anymore, and that says a lot. It's just like I just need quiet, and so it's
Yeah.
good to like now that we can talk again. And yeah, I mean, I wish we could have hung out this year, but next year it looks like we'll see each other. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely next year. This year turned out to be a rough one for me, man. Just like, you know, we don't have to get into all the details, but like,
Yeah, yeah.
there are, as people on the Patreon I've been kind of like talking about it a little bit on the weekly episodes on Patreon too. But like, yeah, it's just been hard, man. Losing my cat, my dad's sick, there's all kinds of stuff going on that have just been and that's primarily why, I didn't make it out to Cologne this year because,
Hmm.
you know, we talked about it a long time ago. And right up until a couple of months before the festival, I was like, back in September, I was like, I should probably get tickets for the plane. Tina was going to come with me and it was going to be great.
Hmm.
But that's when a lot of stuff started circling and a lot of these like family related issues arose. And I was looking at that date and I'm like, man, there's no way I could really be away, because a lot of if I was out of the country and something horrible happened, I would never forgive myself. You know
Of
what I mean?
course. Yeah, family comes first.
And then of course, like, things happen around that time. And,
Hmm.
I would be distracted even if I had gone out there last weekend. Like
Yeah,
I would have
yeah,
been thinking about stuff going on here.
sure.
But with all that said, man, I really lament the fact that I wasn't able to make it for the final descent of Unholy Passion.
Yeah. It was a great night, man. Like I don't want to tease you now, but it was a special night.
Yeah.
And I have to say there's so many people that came up. It's like, why are you ending this? And it's
Yeah.
it's it's such a great festival and you created something beautiful. It's like, I know all of that. But at the end of the night, everybody had a great time. Everybody had a great night, and they were all cheerful, and people went away together. And I was like, in the end, I was lying in my bed alone, and like, oh, so I did all of that, and it was primarily for others again. And that's one of the things this year that I really thought about a lot. That like I do so much stuff for others, and I tend to forget to think about me and care about me, which for a while, like for a long time, I didn't really care for. But ever since Audrey's passing and my breakdown afterwards, I'm trying to get better and think more about myself and what are my needs. And yeah, I mean, it's a whole complex situation also with like how the world evolved in the last months that I see like I tend to stay away from people. And I totally love like what Unholy Passion means to so many people. Also, Ulfa, like our 10th anniversary is now, like the year has been like all crazy shows and fantastic stuff, and I'm so grateful for it. But now it's just like it's my first Saturday where I have nothing on my plate. Just spend some time with Cheetahs today, going to see Dive later on, and it's just like I have this almost like a tinnitus feeling without having like the beaking noise in my ear. But it's just like there's been so much going on that I'm just like, yeah. I want to do it. Maybe I'll do it again one day on Holy Passion. Maybe it will like rise from the ashes. But for now, it's good to say like this has been the peak. It has been special. People will remember it, and maybe one day I'll bring it back. It's not like Planks, like with when we rehearsed with Planks for that one show we were going to do. I was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
like this, and but like with this fest, like I only have good feelings. Ultha is still a thing, but it's just like next year there needs to be a gap, and maybe the year after that too. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to plan so far ahead, but like the chances of Unholy Passion returning are there. Depends on how I feel, how Ultha is progressing, and we'll see. But Ultha is still around, and we'll
Yeah,
still
of
play some
course.
special shows. Yeah.
Yeah. Who all played this year? Like what was the lineup on that?
Okay, so initially I had a plan of doing it 2 days, and I announced it last year. It will be 2 days because I had all this shit figured out. But then, like, all the shit started combusting. That band couldn't do it. Like, we were supposed to play on the Friday. We wanted to play our first record and our first EP in the original lineup. But then Jens, who has tinnitus, said, like, I can't do it. Like, it's not working. I can't play that loud and that long. So I'm like, okay, so fuck Friday. So just do Saturdays. And then I had bands canceling on me, this and that. And I mean, like there's tons of bands that I could have booked just because I liked them.
Yeah.
But the idea of Unholy Passion is like there needs to be some kind of connection to the bands. And I wanted to have this for the final edition as well. So I ended up with like I had Silver Knife from Belgium, and they're one of like they're really progressive kind of atmospheric black metal band. Do you remember that band Paramnesia that
Yeah.
Ultha did a split with?
Yep.
It's pretty much it was their drummer who started the band. He's and it's like Hans, the main guy, who's also in Urhex, like one of the best black metal bands around right now. He became a friend of mine when I had a complete meltdown at an Antwerp show 2 years ago now, last year. What is time anymore? But like Hans and I have been in touch forever, and so I was like, okay, Hans needs to be there. So I booked Silver Knife. Then we have this connection to that band Tuck, which is like the band that grew out of the Blackheart Rebellion, the Belgian band, not Blackheart Procession, but Blackheart Rebellion. And I've been a huge fan of them forever, especially like Peter's voice, the singer. They sound like if Neurosis did a Woven Hand record, like without the heavy guitars, that's kind of like how Blackheart Rebellion sounded. And Tuck is the more reduced version of that. It sounds if you had like a Woven Hand 45 and played it on 33. That's kind of like how Tuck sounds. Super atmospheric, and they were our non-metal band, and dude, they blew everybody away. So many people that were there, like, what band is Tuck? I've never heard of them. And people were like jaw dropped in awe of how beautiful and how powerful this music is. And the last band we had was Verwoerd from the Netherlands, which features Michele from The Secret on guitar.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. And Verwoerd it's pretty much like a one-person project of Eric the singer. And he made it into like a full functioning band a while ago. And we actually had them at Unholy Passion and some years ago. And I didn't even think of that. But then they dropped a new record, and I was like short of a band. And I'm like, oh, that's a perfect match. And because Eric and we kind of share the same, doubts and social anxieties for like a lot of shit. And that's why Verwoerd and Ulfa were kind of like like-minded in spirit. They sound like that band Ascension and a bit of Druk. Like they're a fantastic band, and they released The Mother, which was like a concept album they put out this year, which is an absolute banger. So yeah, it was like Silver Knife started, then it was Verwoerd, then it was Tuck, and then we played for 90 minutes, played a first new song, dug out some really old songs, and yeah, it was fantastic. I really liked it.
Yeah, that's great, man. Like I could just imagine that club. I was that the time one time I was there, that place
Yeah.
is like a really, really great venue.
Yeah. And also like I mean like I tend to say something before we play at Unholy Passion because I mean it's like Ultha's only hometown show, and it's like the baby that I booked, and I'm like I always I like to thank people because I'm just so grateful that after 10 years people still do pilgrimage to come to that festival, people still give a shit about Ulfa when there's like literally millions of bands out there, and some of them are actually good bands. But like people like take time out of their day to listen to our music of all the things that is happening, and so that fest is for them. And so I said something about this beforehand, like how grateful we are to be doing this and to the venue and everything. And then yeah, I said something about like our friend Friese, who passed away like before summer.
Yeah.
He was like he was one of the most loved people that everybody here knows. He used to work at Underdog Records where I help out now. Um, and yeah, he had like cancer and it
Oh
got,
man.
yeah, and it was like he fought it like a true warrior for 2 years. And then everything looked good. And then he had like another, like appointment to go check out. And they said like, oh, well, it looks like it spread and it was a rare form of cancer, which was earlobe cancer. And like the cancer spread out through his brain to the other
Oh
side.
man.
And yeah, then he got the news, so you'll probably have about 6 weeks to 6 months. Next week he had a stroke, and
Oh
then
God.
they couldn't do surgery on him because they said like, yeah, the cancer is in the brain, so we cannot do surgery. So the family had to come down and had to decide, yeah, we're going to pull the plug now. And then he passed, and I helped out the summer holidays, worked at Underdog. And yeah, and ever since then, everybody was talking about him. So I gave this speech about him, and that's the thing about Ultha, like, I mean, it's melancholic music, but I always tend to incorporate a bit of hope in the music because it's not depressive black metal. It's not like that I sing about like getting a razor blade and like opening your veins. It's like I always think about like the world is shit, people are shit, but there's still some hope. And so I spoke about like how Friese was like one of the most inspiring people because he was so positive even in the worst part of his life, and how he affected so many people, and his favorite band was Iron Maiden. So before we played, I asked everybody to get their cell phones out to like illuminate the flashlight. We turned down the light at the venue and we played like the acoustic melody of Fear of the Dark.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
Yeah, man, it was super emotional, and then we played, and everybody went ape shit, and people like random people I've never met before came. It's like, dude, like I lost my mother this year, and what you
Yeah.
said about like hope and like fighting death and what we can learn from the people we love and we lost. So it was super overcharged with emotion, and it was just we played, and it was such a release for everybody. So it was a great end of the year for like it seems a lot of people had like tragic lives this year, and
Yeah.
so that was special. And I'm glad to be going out guns blazing with this festival. And like I said, one day we'll see. Maybe it will return.
That sounds powerful, man. Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just it is unbelievable how much loss there was this year. I
it's
mean,
crazy.
on a personal level, obviously, a lot of the stuff that I've dealt with this year and the last several years, man. But like,
Yeah,
you really, when stuff like that starts happening and friends who should still be alive, like that he should not have, he's too young to pass,
yeah,
and when you see somebody basically, in the prime of their life, fading away like that, it's like even more tragic than someone who
yeah,
has lived like an entire full life,
yeah,
and you just, it's such an intense thing to like, you think about just how fragile this all is, and you think about like the difference between life and death. Like, what is that element that disappears? Like where does that, not to get too much into this kind of stuff really, because I was, it's been a trip, for me these last few months too. On, a
yeah.
lot of that specter of death just doesn't seem to want to go away from me, right
Mm.
now. But but yeah, I meditate on that constantly, man, about just like, you know, watching life leave somebody in front of
Mm.
you. And it's just like very, just a mystery. It's like a mysterious thing that happens.
Yeah. I've been like I've been also in this downward spiral from my thinking process about like a lot of shit came together in a short period of time in the second term of this year. And like with like Friese's passing, I was so baffled because like when you and I at some point, I mean, we will fade away at some point.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
there will be people that will be sad, and there will be people that say like, "Thank God this shit bag is gone." Like there's it's the nature of the beast, the way that you and I are. We will rub some people the wrong way, may it be rightful or not. But there's people that don't like us. There's a lot of people that like us, and a lot of people that don't give a shit. But like with Friese, he was like a person I don't know anybody. Really, there's no one I know who had anything bad to say about him. He was such a genuinely just heartfelt, nice person, a good person, and he of all people has to die. Like
Yeah. Yep.
it's like so unfair. I mean, death is never fair, but it was like so this happens, and a few weeks later, like the whole election process goes out of
Oh,
control in the
yeah.
States. And then it's like, okay, so Trump will be president again. A person that is like, I was because one thing that I needed to learn in the last 2 years is to accept that people, when they tell me, Ralph, you are a nice person, you are a good person. I'm like, I always argue, like, yeah, but I did this and I think that. And they're like, no, Ralph, you're a good person. You're good for the kids in school. You're good for the people that love you, and you're good to people even if they don't love you. That's like that makes you a good person. I'm like, I don't know. I learned to accept it. But dude, when Trump got elected, I was like, I expected it, but I was like, so what does that mean for me? Do I just like become an asshole now? Just grab girls by the pussy? Or just be like a jackass? It's like it's so incredibly hard to see someone like Friese go, to see someone like him be elected, to see like how the whole world combusts. Like our chancellor is stepping down, and there will be re-elections in February around the same time that Trump's will be back in office. And from right now, it looks like the Christian Democrats will be the strongest party, and their guy for the position of chancellor is like a hardline traditionalist Christian
Yeah.
who wants to close the borders, and he's so close to the AfD, and the AfD has like won their states, and they will be like super powerful. So the next years, man, it will be a shit show everywhere around. And that's what like got me like spiraling in this loop. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It's like I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to see anything. I want to listen to music. I want to watch some horror movies about shit that's not going to happen anyhow. And like it's so weird, and I'm so done with this whole death thing. So many people died, so many animals died. So I know, man. Like I feel you, and if we've been in touch, so I know it's time to leave that shit behind us if we could.
Yeah, somehow I don't I think I still have some more of that coming down the line for me.
Yeah,
Just from some just well from what I know on some family matters here, But
yeah,
I mean, to me, I lost someone like who should have not who should still be alive, who was someone that never had anyone say bad things about. And
yeah,
it's like it made me think about a lot of things too. I was just like, when that person passed, I was like, why do I get to go on? Like I'm such a miserable cunt. You know what I mean? I just hate everything. I hate life. I hate people. Like,
mm,
why do I get to go on and this other beautiful person has to end, their life ends, and it's like
yeah,
such, but that's that spiral, that like thought process is like, you have to let go of that eventually because, you'll end up just being in the ground eventually too, sooner than you should be. And
yeah,
that's really the brutality and pain of life is that you have to go on, because it would be almost like a lack of respect for the people that have passed on,
yeah,
because you get to live, like you get to possibly turn things around, like you get to move on to another thing, and
yeah,
it's like, the simple things actually kept me going too, man. I was like, you know, during that period of time, I had to travel a lot, up to Massachusetts and different places. And, I remember seeing like the fall and the way the leaves turned in the Hudson Valley. And I was just like, if I wasn't around, I would miss that.
Yeah.
It's not being in a band. It wasn't making music. It wasn't even people necessarily. It was just the experience of being alive and experiencing the world was something that I knew that I would miss if I wasn't around.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that kind of brought me up from the bottom of that pit that I was in. And
Yeah.
it's like, and then from there, one day turns into another, and your thought processes change, and you never really feel, you don't not feel the loss, but it's just maybe a little bit easier with time passing to to
Yeah.
to cope with it.
Yeah. For me, it's like I try to like after the thing. I mean, that's when Audrey passed. I I was about to like fall completely into the hole, but then it's like no. She fought so hard her last weeks to stay with me. And I'm like, I'm going to fight too, and I want to be better. I want to feel better. I don't want to be this miserable prick anymore. And like then stuff happened, and and like it's kind of like I always compare it to a diet. Like I can eat sugar and get fat really quick, and that's like how kind of depression work with all like the low blows you take in life. But to
Yeah.
get out of this, to lose the fat, to get out of your depression, out of the loophole, is so hard, and it takes so much time, and you have to be disciplined and reevaluate. And I did this, and it's like when Friese passed, I was like, man, like what a shame. And he was such a good guy. And like, but I'm not going to miserable about it. Like I thought about like how a like the funeral parties are in New Orleans because like in Germany, like when someone passes, it's this really heavy ceremony in church with an organ and everybody's crying. And then in New Orleans, you have these people walk through the street and celebrate the life of that person. So we had this wake for Friese, like, and it was such a positive thing about like, hey, remember the story about him, and that got me thinking. Like, I was like, I want people to think about me when I'm gone and say like, hey, this guy made this world a bit better, and that helped me to like. Like transfer the energy to that, like, no, keep going forward. It's going to be better. And like that's when Trump got elected, I'm like, no, I'm not going to fall into this trap. Like I know why I am trying to be polite. I know why I'm trying to be nice. And it has a reason, and now this reason is more important than it ever was.
There is this like very alarming rise of this sort of nationalist right wing movement, man. It's kind of scary to be
It's
honest. Like,
bad everywhere. Yeah.
like you're saying in Germany, there's, I mean, I've seen a rise in the right wing in Germany for several years actually,
Yeah.
but that is existing. There's Giorgia Meloni, and in Italy, there's Viktor Orban,
Yeah.
and in Hungary, who's like that's one of Trump's heroes, I guess.
Yeah.
And now there's Donald Trump, but where I think like it's almost comedic. Like initially I remember the night of the election, I didn't sleep at all, man. I was like glued to whatever, channel we were watching, and I was just like watching everything sweep across the nation. And I was convinced the next day that he cheated to be honest,
Yeah.
because I'm like, why not? Right? They caught him in 2020 cheating, and it's like he probably tried to cheat in 2016 too, but it's just then when I thought about like what kind like how this could have happened, it's like with Joe Biden stepping down and Kamala Harris stepping up, no one really knew her. Like she's not it's and the fact that it was as close as it was without a anyone really caring for her. She was very not, she didn't, wasn't really liked by anybody,
Mm.
and there was only like 100 days for her to wage a campaign, really. And I know that the Republicans are looking at this whole thing as like a mandate, but he only got like 49% of the popular vote.
Mm.
So, but that's not how elections work here. There's like the
Yeah.
electoral college, there's all this like these gerrymandered districts, and it's like elections, it's you choose who votes for you. The voters don't choose you. The
Mm.
candidate chooses who votes for them. That's
Yeah.
a very cynical way of looking at it, but that is how things are happening in this country. It's crazy. And
Yeah.
that goes all the way back to like, you know, post Civil War. There is a racist element behind it because once in, after Lincoln, after there was a large black population in the country who were former slaves. So of course, oh no, we can't we can't have these people. We can't give them an equal voice here, so they came up with the Electoral College, as a
Yeah.
result of that. And that's how things have been rolling ever since. And that is why I believe Donald Trump became a Republican in the first place, because he used to be a Democrat.
Mm.
And that is the only reason how Republicans stay in power, because they
Yeah.
still haven't won the popular vote, is despite what everyone says. Yes, they won the popular vote against the Democrat, but they still have less than 50% of support in this country.
Mm.
And this is the thing. It's like no one really pays that much attention to things. You know what I mean? No one, and that's how fascism slips into next thing you know,
Mm.
you have no rights and you've got a bunch of idiots running the country.
Yeah.
And this is all based on, like, look at the people he's chosen for his cabinet. And
That's incredible. That's like a comedy show, all right,
yeah.
already. Yeah.
Well, two of them drop. I mean, he still has to get it through. They still have to vote on it. These are just appointments. They're not like it's not like they're shoo-ins.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
still have to get. There has to go through Congress and everything too. And
See
yeah,
what? Yeah.
that's all I really have to say about it.
What I really like in this crisis mode I had, like, I mean, we talked about it for a while, and maybe we should do a metaphysics of reason at some point.
Yeah,
It's just like, like I really back like the philosophy of Immanuel Kant and like the categorical imperative. And it's just like everything is about reason and seeing like the bigger picture, and you're going a step back, and seeing like, oh, if I'll do this now, this will have X consequences. And I feel like we're seeing the rise of populism to this maximum level that it has now. It's so baffling. And I'm like, the kids in school, like they knew how invested I was in this election. And like the next day, like on Thursday morning, I went to school, and like these kids never watched the news. But I told them, like, like tomorrow morning, you better listen to the radio or something to see what happens. And I came to the room, and they were like dead silent. I'm
yeah,
like, what the fuck is going on with you? We're like, yeah, we're not sure how you'll feel today. I'm like, yeah, you can imagine how I feel. Like a lot of my friends live in a country now that voted for this dickhead a second time. And then I went on this rambling thing where I was like, what I don't get is like, how did he do it? And then like afterwards, when they like when the Late Show and then Last Week Tonight, and they all tried to wrap their head around it. It's like it's crazy that it's been like so many small things that he did. Like you get the black voters with that. You even get the gay voters with that. So he was like doing populist shit to specific groups, and then like in the end, it's like that when I saw, because like the whole Palestine Israel conflict in Germany is still such a huge mess and like
yeah,
such a debatable topic. Well, when I saw like these popular Muslims that are pro Gaza said like, yeah, we cannot vote for Kamala Harris. And then someone asked, yeah, why not? It's like, yeah, because she supports Israel. It's like, and then like the reporter was like, but if you elect Trump, he will like go all out to like bomb away Gaza. So Israel is like the only thing.
yep,
Yeah, we will see about that. Maybe we can change something. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's the thing. Like, there's no reason anymore. It's just like someone says something on TikTok and people think like, oh, that's the truth. Oh yeah, I'm going to back that because it's my opinion anyhow. Whose fault is it? Oh, it's the foreigners, it's the migrants. Oh yeah. Yeah, I will like on my first day, I will start kicking all the illegal immigrants out of this country. So no one asked like what will happen if
Yeah.
he would be able to do it, to raise these millions of dollars it would cost. Like what would it do to the economy? Like how would anything work? People don't care about this anymore. They just want to hear, oh yeah, I have a problem with the foreigners, so I'll just say that. Like he says that, so I'll back him. He will make it
Well,
work.
it's only certain foreigners people have problems with.
Oh
You know,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
if you're German and you immigrate to the United States, you're oh no, come right in. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
if you're you know, if you're from if you're Russian, they love you too over here.
Yeah.
It's
Especially, yeah.
especially Russians now. But on a more practical level too. I mean, this is the thing about you know, I mean, of course, like everyone wasn't paying attention to that day in school when they talked about tariffs, I guess, like back in grade school, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and but there's that. But then the reality too is all of these like, you know, people from from South America, like the south of the border types, you know, like people from Mexico, even Mexico. I know Mexico's not part of South America, so don't flame me
yeah.
on that. But there's, you know, people have migrated from South America, Mexico into the United States, some illegal, some have papers, etc. If you like blueberries and avocados, which everyone seems to love these days, get ready to pay 5 times more money for those things because if this Gestapo-esque roundup of people that are being considered illegal happens, there's not going to be anyone left to to
Yeah. Yeah.
to do this work, and you're going to be paying minimum wage people. You know, so that exploitation is everything that everyone seems to be, not paying attention to that, and that goes into a larger conversation about made in America, right?
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
oh yeah, we're gonna encourage people to, we're not gonna do trade. We're not gonna trade internationally anymore with these tariffs. It's like, okay, well, there are certain products that haven't been made in this country in like 80 years. You know what I mean? There's certain
Yeah.
things that we rely on imports for because of free trade. And that's we can get a better price. Everyone wins if it's done fairly, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's like I was saying, the more cynical element of exploiting people to do these jobs that are happy to make $1 a day or whatever they pay, people out in these fields, $1 an hour or something like that. And because in the economy that they're coming from, it's like you can live like a king on this like reduced wage that people are getting exploited. So if you
Mm,
kick everyone out, you're gonna have to pay some white dude to come into these farms, and he's not gonna do the work for one
yeah.
dollar an hour or whatever. And now there you go, high prices again. You know, and contrary to what the preaching element of the Republican Party has said, inflation was down. The United States was energy independent, for the first time ever. And actually, the job market was opening up, and our GDP was up, and the stock market was up, which is like what Trump always relies on. Even though that is not a sound way to judge your economy, I mentioned that exclusively because during Trump's reign of terror the first time around, he was always citing how the stock market's doing great. The
Mm,
stock market's it's up. You know, Biden was up under Biden too. So
yeah.
it's like, what are you gonna, there was like such an incredible like mind like just mass hypnosis going on or something with people. And I'm going to say why I think so. I mean, there will be those out there who will sort of criticize me for simplifying this and will try to rationalize that Trump's not such a bad guy, that Trump, is good for this country on some level. So I know that there will be those out there who will criticize this. However, 20% of this country reads at a sixth grade or lower level. Okay.
Mm,
Now, it's not so much that you can't read, but the mental strength that you acquire from reading is not there either. That analytical ability, like to decipher, to look on a page and see these symbols and take that abstraction and turn it into something in your brain is an exercise that you are not doing if you cannot read. And that does not that stands in the way of you having any reasonable sense of analysis. Besides him, I can pick up this box and put it on the shelf. Like that's you live in a different world.
Mm.
And if you don't have in this day and age, if you can't analyze things, you're gonna become you can be tricked into anything. You'll believe anything.
Yeah,
It's like that's why most people don't read anything. They consume these videos. They
right.
consume TikTok videos or these short, 1 minute clips about something. So of course, all this sloganeering and all these like bite-sized bits of propaganda are easily digested by you if you don't have that analysis. Like you'll tune into whatever right-wing, microcosm you're in, and you'll be fed all this information, and you won't question it because you don't have the ability to question it. And that's why this exists in this country. And that's my,
Yeah.
thank you very much. That's my
That's
breakdown of the United
that's
States.
that's all for tonight. Thank
That's
you.
all for tonight.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Good night.
Drum roll. Bye bye. Take care.
Yeah, I can hear the guys breaking my door down now, because I'm
But
speaking out against Der Fuhrer.
but I mean this episode is not presented by X, so you don't need to worry.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't even really want to get too much into it, but it's like that's how I feel, man, and I know that
Yeah.
like, you know, and it's not even like a conservative thing because I gotta be honest, like I'm not a full-throated Democrat either, man. Like I'm not someone who's like I don't back all the extreme progressive ideas either.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a centrist. I'm not there's some conservative ideas I have, and then but socially I'm very far left.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
fiscally I'm probably more conservative, but like, you know, but I'm not like, one of these like far left people either.
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean it's the same here. It's hard to navigate because you cannot talk to people anymore.
No.
It's there's no I mean people also don't want to talk. They just want to yell in your face when they disagree with you, or they want to say like, "Oh, we're best buds. Let's go on a ride on a bender now because we have the same opinion." There's no in the middle anymore. And that's like such an integral part for my job as a teacher because like I mean, I made this example like a million times when we spoke about the Inquisition thing. It's like, like people make mistakes and they have to change. If they change, cool. If they don't change and they try it again, maybe give them another chance. But like at some point, you just lose it. And like we spoke about Blake Judd before we started recording, it's the same thing. Like when he made his return the first time, it was like, hey, I'm clean now, and everybody was like, oh, don't trust this scumbag. I'm like, dude. Like if he tries and he proves he's right, cool for him. Well, I mean, then they fucked other like the others over again, and it's like if I in school would like take like I have like a bunch of kids that are like Muslim and they talk shit to me about like what the Quran says and what it doesn't, and it's like always like like you don't want to be treated as a race like as a religious extremist. So you hate that people say that all Turkish people instantaneously are terrorists, right? Yeah. So like, why don't you never think about how this happens? Yeah, because someone flew a plane in like two towers. Like, yeah, but like, how could that happen? Them justifying it, and people like in Afghanistan, it's like backing the narrative of like killing all opponents of the Muslim religion. The same goes like in the history of like the Christians and the Jews. It's like so that's because people read a book and they don't really think about it or they cannot read it and someone tells them, like it's like, hey, I want to be a Christian. So ChatGPT, could you please summarize the Bible real quick for me? Oh yeah, that's my opinion now.
See,
Like
and you hit the nail on the head though about being
yeah,
told, because that's really like I think in these more fundamentalist movements, no one's actually reading these things. They're being told these things by whoever is the head of their religion. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
for like, the Muslims, it's an imam. He interprets the Quran for them. And as you know, there's like different books in there. There's like the different versions of Muhammad too.
yeah,
It's like there's two different versions of that prophet. And
yeah,
whichever version the imam is preaching to you is the one that you're going to follow. Not
yeah,
you're not going to read the Quran on your own. And okay, you know what? I think these apply more to me. These ideas. So I'm going
yeah,
to maybe take this because Muhammad was a man and he is has the freedom to change his mind about certain things and live life differently at certain points. And maybe I relate more to this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But that's taken away from you when you don't know how to read.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like people are not trained to make up their own mind anymore. I mean, I see like the deterioration for the kids right now is like the tracks, the music that they play in school when I do music, and it's like, hey, let's analyze some songs, and I teach them how like the classic pop structure works, like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, chorus. So, and they're like, oh yeah, so I'll analyze my songs. Like I am done. It's like, how the fuck can you be done? Like, yeah, the song is 1.5 minutes long. It's like,
Oh
what?
man.
And then they show me their playlist, and it's like the music is evolving to match the algorithm of TikTok. So, like, the new song starts with the hook, have like the hook again, have a verse, twice the hook, and then they go out. That's like the new rap music that they listen to, the new pop music, because the attention span is so dim right now. And then it's like, so okay, but you always talk about, like you wear a hijab, and you like tell me about like, hey, Mr. Schmidt, you could be a fantastic Muslim because you live halal, you don't drink alcohol, you live vegan, so you don't eat any unprocessed meat and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, but like how why are you not like changing to a religion? And it's like, because I read the books, and I just read the books because I wasn't taught to be a Muslim or to be a Christian. And that's like the big difference, like to because like for me it's easy. I was not raised on being religious. So if I wanted to be religious, something would have to happen that really like makes me change my mind or like change my feeling towards it. But for the kids, it's like it's so not feasible, or like they can't really wrap their head around like like what, there was no religion in your household. It's like, no, like I was raised to be skeptical for that. You're not. You like your father whispered the first zur of the Quran into your ear when you came out. No one was allowed in that room when your mom gave birth to you. No one was allowed to say anything before the imam said the first surah of the like the religious how do you call it, like the tagline, like like the one thing you have to say as to become a Muslim. That's the first thing you heard in your whole life when you were a baby that just came out of the womb. So you've been raised to believe in this. So for you to step out of your way and say like, oh, let's look critical at religion, at like how Muslims practice this. Same goes for Christians. It's hard. For me, I read the Bible, I read the Talmud, I read the Quran. I have thought, I spoke to people about it. I know that there's truth in these books, but it's not the absolute truth. And then I told the kids in school, like, when you go to Afghanistan and how the Taliban like treats their women, their children, everything. Is that something you say that's in the Quran? And like for the kids that read, it's like, no, absolutely not. See, that's because they're analphabets. They cannot read. They have someone tell them what's in that book. And if you can't prove it that it's wrong because you cannot read yourself and you're held down, how the fuck will you ever learn like how a true Muslim really lives? Because all the Muslims I know, they say like this is terrible, you know? Uh,
Yeah, it's there's the need to control people has always been around, man. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And that's why these like those monotheistic religions rose, because it was a way for someone to control people,
yeah,
and that's just that was a thing, man. You remember back in the 90s, it was like it felt like the world was actually doing okay. Like I felt like, oh, we got, like there's all this awareness of things, and how could the future be any darker than this? But it is, it's suddenly this like the rise of like ignorance, really. And you kind of hit the nail on the head about the pop song stuff, about the short attention spans and the illiteracy in the world. It's like it's creating a bunch of automatons who just will believe anything, really. That's
yeah.
why like there's the flat earth movement. That's why there's like all these things. And it's interesting. A couple of years ago, I went to go see Vinny Paz, the Jedi mind tricks guy.
Hmm.
And they weren't even playing their entire songs. They were just doing like what you were saying. Like they have the if you listen to a Jedi mind tricks record or a Vinny Paz record, and like there's songs on there. But when you go see them perform live, there's just these segments like that would be played on like a TikTok video.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole live performance was. Because I was listening, I'm like, wow, the guy only he played like a 25% of the song. That's it, you know?
Yeah. And that makes me it makes me nervous. And like when they play music like from like in schools, like, hey, listen to this and that, and then there's like, in some lessons I'm like, here's like a Bluetooth speaker if it helps you like while you work on your tasks. Just like put on the phone and like play some shit. And like I'm grading papers, they're working on their shit, and it's just like, like 90 seconds in, the song skips. I'm like, what the hell? Like, why is there a new song? And like it makes me nervous because I listen to extended music, which is like really long, like imagine it must be pure torture for them to listen to like I don't know, like a 9-minute drone song or something,
Yeah.
which it's like pure torture for them. And I'm like, I don't know. It's like it's hard to keep up with this, and like I feel I'm at that point in school where I'm like, I think I still understand kind of what is happening. I understand like the rap movement where it started, where it's gone, and where it's now, like how much power it has. As a philosophy teacher, I kind of have a grasp about politics and like the thing that they're thinking about. But like I'm at the point where I'm like, I think like in a few years, I'll be out, man. Then I'll be one of these old like white guys who's like yelling at clouds because like, oh, I don't know what Fortnite is. I don't know who that guy is. And but right now it's like it's just crazy to see it and like I really like I was almost jumping in joy when like last year with my class that I've been teaching for 6 years in music in the 10th grade music class, and we were talking about film music. And I'm like, okay, so you go out and choose any show or movie where you like the music and write like a short paragraph about why this music helps this scene in this very movie or show to be better. And you have like these, like a lot of kids took Prison Break because like I don't know why, but Prison Break is still a thing that everybody's has a hard on for. Um, and like all these people took like, Disney movies or Fast and the Furious and this kind of
Hmm.
thing. And there was one girl who I knew like from a very good household, and she's always a bit quiet. And she's like, "Oh yeah, so I want to speak today about Ennio Morricone and The
Ooh,
Godfather." I'm like, "Oh
wow.
shit." It's like,
Nice.
"Really?" And she's like, she was 15. I'm like, "You watched The Godfather?" "Yeah, it's my favorite movie." I'm like, "Wow." So there is still hope after all.
Oh yeah,
But
dude.
yeah, yeah,
I it's easy to get cynical about these things, but I
yeah, yeah.
also feel sometimes I am surprised with young people, and I sound like an old man now, which is
Hmm.
fairly true, believe it or not. But I get cynical a lot. But then again, I do see young people doing interesting things,
Yeah.
and I kind of feel like the whatever the next generation after, what do they call them? What's the Gen after Gen Z or something like that?
Yeah, now it's Gen Z. What I don't know. What then we start from Generation Alpha? Like I don't know. Like where do
Well,
you
maybe
start?
that's like, this is it. This is going to be the last for us as Gen Z. That's it. That's the last generation. No more humans,
Yeah, Generation Elon.
God, another guy. I used to
Generation
like
S
that dude. I remember like a long time ago, like back in the halcyon days of the Joe Rogan experience before I stopped listening to him completely. The I'm like, this guy's pretty cool, man. He's like Tony Stark or something like that. But then, dude, now he like basically bought our government,
yeah.
in this United States.
In the
And
moment where I saw the picture where he was jumping in joy behind
oh
Trump, I'm like,
man.
okay, world is over. Now it's
Yeah.
done.
And the ironic part is he's an immigrant too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, apparently he came into the country illegally through Canada.
Huh.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
there you
Oh man.
go.
It's a
Yeah, I know, man.
it's a joyful world, but like you said, and that's like maybe to like wrap around the Stark part and talk about like nicer things. But like I like in summer my class that I've been teaching for 6 years, and I think I explained it to before, like on the podcast, that in Germany you're like the kids are in one class and they have different teachers coming to them into their room to be taught in maths, in PE, and whatever. but you have like one head teacher who's like your go-to person for the time being. And for 6 years in our school, you are connected to them. So I see them grow up from fifth grade, so 10 to 11 to like then 16, 17-ish. So I see like little brats, well, converging into bigger brats, but like still, um, it's cool to see that. And like it like when they had like their final graduation in July, like it was kind of like the thing that I explained about Unholy Passion earlier on. I I planned the celebration and it was this gigantic, like what do you like ballroom dance, I don't know, in a way. And everybody was joyful and everybody said thank you and blah blah blah. And everybody went away. And then I drove home alone. It was dark and I played the new Bleib Modern record, which came out this year. And it's like one of these few German post-punk bands that are really good. And they had this one line, and I was sad, this is over. Like for 6 years I taught them, and now snap, it's gone. I have to do something new now. And I was thinking about this class, and it's like, oh yeah, some of these kids will go on to do good things. Some of them will fuck up, some will fail. Two of them will most likely go to prison at some point. But like some of them are cool and there's still hope. One of these kids being the girl that said The Godfather. And then like the one song played and he sings like, I don't hate the world, I just really hate the people. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, like everything is okay. Nature is still there. I can still go out. And there are some kids that will go on to do good things, and maybe they will turn around the steering wheel that is like right now is like steering towards the abyss because that's what like the scientists say like for the next 10 years it will be more ugly until people realize like how much we fucked up everything, and then it's the same like after Second World War we have to turn it around. And I'm also still doing this job, and I was, by God, I was thinking about it a lot to quit it. I'm like, I have an impact on some of these kids, and maybe some of them will be the forces that later on change a tiny bit to make this world a bit better. So that's why I'm still a teacher.
But something you touched on an interesting idea. It's like, you know, I think even going back to when I was a kid, most kids were idiots for even back then. You know what I mean? Like back
Yeah.
in when I was growing up, nobody was cool. Everyone, it was like there was the one person that liked the same music you did and read the same books and wasn't like completely a product of whatever nonsense people get into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that that percentage is still accurate. And I think that even though there's like this war against like people's attention spans, that there are going to be people out there who still read and who still try to like put together thoughts, and it's harder now though because of just mobile technology being like so addictive.
Sure. And that's what they want. I mean, that's why like, how this whole shit is like set up. It's meant to keep us distracted and to keep us busy and not seeing and focusing on what is really happening. And I mean, I'm addicted to my cell phone. I look at it a lot of times, but like I still feel that like the being a like a self-reliant person and being able to make like decision based on reason. I'm proud of this, and I'm proud that there's still like that I have this influence. That what I said about Unholy Passion, that people say thank you for like writing the lyrics that you write, for setting this up, for saying honest things and can relate to this. And I can only be myself. And like I said, there will be people that hate me, that will always be there, and that's okay. But like if I touch some people and it makes their life better, great. If I have like an impact on some of the kids, great. And we'll see where it goes. I mean, in the end, you and I, we don't have any impact on anything. Like we can do small things in our next surrounding, but you and I, we won't be president and change great things. But then in the end, that's not my goal. I like to like the stuff that I can control, which is my surrounding. And I'm proud of like a lot of the stuff that I did this year, and that's like something that I wasn't able to do for a while. For example, yesterday, one thing I was like really proud of is like I had this. this idea that like all the people that are on the guest list for Unholy Passion need to toss some money into like a donation bin for the animal shelter where Titus came from. And we were able to raise €1,000 that night. And so yeah, so yesterday we went there to the shelter with Danny, Titus, and I, and people were still like, "Oh, Titus, we remember him," and we gave him like the cash, and they were super thankful. And they're like, "Yeah, a lot of like a lot of the animals now will get like better food this year and this." And I'm like, €1,000 in the grand scheme of things is not a lot, but like I was able to get some hatred looking motherfuckers, that go like, like how grim the author audience is. They're like all real satanic motherfuckers. But like like they put money in there like at a show where it's about black metal. And yes, of course, there were like some of these dumb right-wing assholes that like always criticize Ulta for not being a black metal band in the comic section somewhere. It's like, oh yeah, I'll look at these faggots now. They raise money and awareness for animals. I'm like, dude, whatever the fuck you want. There's enough Nazi bullshit for you out there. But I did something that I'm really proud of, which is not only the music, but like I was able to raise €1,000 for something I believe in. So that's cool. And it's the small things, and I'm thankful for being able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I wish I could have made it out there for that. Definitely, you know.
Yeah. We will do at some point, man. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe Toombs needs to come over and we do like another fest or something.
Well, we better not wait too long, is all I have to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I mean next year, like I said, man, like we have that record, no official announcement yet, but there's a new team's record coming out next year. And we're gonna need to do some touring. And
Yeah.
I haven't been to Europe to do a proper tour in a long time. Like we've been over there to do festivals and things like that. But surely, I mean, it's been like many years since I've actually played a
Yeah.
tour in Europe.
Yeah, and I think like I mean, you and I, we're both realistic with what our bands are able to do, and I
Yeah,
mean, this year for Ultha has been crazy, and we've did like some shit that I've never imagined being able to do. But in the grand scheme of things, we're still a small band, but we can like when we tour, there will be 100 to 200 people every night, which is to me a tremendous success for like playing music, which is like a niche within a niche. And like we select way more now to not play every coffee shop or like random like DIY squat. It's just like, hey, I want to play 10 shows. I want to make it worthwhile. If it's feasible, so we get like proper sleeping places, not someone's floor, we get good food, and I have like a bunch of people show up, I'm cool with that. I'm willingly putting like a few €100 on top just to be able to play like cool shows for people that are actually interested in. And I think if we plan it like this, it should be totally doable. Yeah.
yeah. For us, like let's see, um, you mean minus the bands, right? Like I'm not counting the bands that play on the bill. I would say we would probably draw like maybe like I don't know, 7 or 8 people maybe every night. That's probably on a good night. I think if we're on a Monday, maybe less. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's
But
that's
that's
great.
minus the
Yeah.
bands that are playing on the bill.
I really I would really love to test out like how Ulta would work in the States. It's we've got so many people over there that back us, and like now like
Yeah,
the Spotify wrap up came out, and it's just like it's like pretty much the States and Germany are pretty much tied in place and orders. And I'm like, that's crazy. But a lot of people ask us and we're like, it wasn't easy up until now, but like starting in February, it will be even more difficult for us to get in there and
yeah,
play shows. We don't have a manager, we have no one over there to do like all the stuff that is like needed to be doing it. We've got like tons of friends. Like you said like we can do a tour. Yellow Eyes said it. Inter Alma said it. Woe said it. We've got so many friends, and I would love to come over because we've got so many people there that love us, and I would love to see how it works when we come over because. Like the only UK tour I ever did prior to like the shows that I just played was the Ill-Fated Planks Tombs tour, which was like way too early for
yeah.
both
In both
bands.
bands, definitely. Yeah, that was
And
like yeah,
oh man. I remember that Leeds show, like where it was like, oh, Leeds is the place for metal. And there's like we walked, I remember we got to the venue and there's no poster. The promoter is like completely depressed because like his girlfriend dumped him. And we walked downtown. There's a guy with a Neurosis shirt and the one with an Emperor shirt. It's like, hey, you're coming to the show tonight? Hey, what show? It's like, oh man.
It's like the two guys
So
in that town who would have came, like they didn't even know it was happening that night.
Ugh. But yeah, man, like now, Ulfa played like Gary of Reaper Agency got us to fly out, and we played Fortress Fest for like I think 2,000 people, and it caused such a ruckus that like we'll go over to the UK and do like a proper tour there, and
Nice.
it's like crazy that like 10 years in with this band that there's still this interest in us. And there's the demand for more, so we'll give them more. I mean, I have certainly have the passion again, which I lost in 2019 for a while because I was broken. Um, so yeah, man. But like we said, like for the planning for next year, we want to do shit like the one where we flew to Athens this year, where we knew like this won't be a financial success, but it was such a great experience, and it ended up costing us as a band maybe a grand for like 7 people hanging out for 4 days in Greece, play one of the most emotional shows, hang out with the coolest people. And that's the shit that I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like, I don't need to do like a support tour for a big band, like cranking myself into a nightliner, which I would hate. I want to play shows for people that actually give a fuck for what you're doing. And I'm willing to drive 9 hours to do that. And I just want to sleep in a proper hotel in the end of the night, and then I'm good.
See, the sleeping is going to sound very funny to a lot of people, but the overnight accommodations, I've grown into a very luxurious sort of dude these days, man. I got to be honest. You know, it's like when
Yeah.
we went on the tour with Profanatica earlier this year, I was like sleep in a hotel bed with these my bass player, you know, like I got to sleep on this cot, you know, it's like you know, then I thought about being home when I was like, fuck, I have this like king size bed I sleep with my beautiful girlfriend in every night,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like now I'm like, oh man, I don't know about this anymore. You know, I was like, yeah, you know, driving 8 hours a day, and this is too much, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like where we're at that point, like with Ultha, that we're blessed that we make a bunch of money with merch, and we're like, if they say like, hey, we can give you like a grand for that show, but sleeping will be like in an Airbnb apartment with one room and 10 beds, and there will be another band. Oh, they say like, oh, we can give you like 1.5 and you take care of accommodation yourself. And we just booked something for ourselves where everybody has his own room. I'm willing to put some money on top of that because we can compensate it with the shirts in the end, and we don't have like these high costs. And like I'm so happy that this is like an option now because I mean, you remember the Anodyne tour. I remember the
Oh
early
God.
planks. Yeah, I remember the early planks and Hellstrom tours. Like I slept in like feces
Oh dude, yeah.
and all that shit. Like I don't never want to do that again. Yeah.
Yeah, the Anodyne days were like rough, definitely, man. I remember this is actually I don't know why this popped into my head right now, but like I remember we played a show in Northampton, Massachusetts, which is out in Western Mass, and it was a club called the Kaleidoscope, I think, or it's not there anymore. It's like a DIY venue, but it was like a nice place, I remember. But it's funny because we there was a load-in garage, like that was you loaded in behind the venue and you loaded in, and then there was a whole area with a venue and a stage and a PA and everything, right? We loaded into the garage and we started setting up our gear, and it was like the guy's like, "What are you guys doing?" I'm like, we're playing back here, right? This, you know, I'm getting ready to play. And he's like, no, the fuck, dude. This is just like the load-in area. Put your stuff on the stage. And I was like, what stage you talking about? And he's like, through that door is a stage, and that's the venue. I'm like, oh shit. So yeah, we went in and I'm like, oh wow, it's like there's actually a stage here and like a PA and like a riser for the drums. And I was like, wow, this is like that's how I was living back in those days, man. Like
Yeah, yeah.
never, no stages, no proper venues, no nothing, man. It was just
Yeah.
like playing in the floor of a, you know, or that the place in Mannheim, that
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Yeah, that way you like play, and then when everything's taken down, you sleep exactly at the spot where you just played a show.
Yep,
Like,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I like recently had like a talk with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about like these old days of his old band touring and mine, and we were like, like upping each other's ante. So like, oh, I remember this show, man. It was almost like Al Bundy football stories, and I just remember like the last Hellström tour we did with like a Swedish band from the Ashes, which we had picked up in Hamburg at the ferry, and we had to carry them from the ferry because they were already piss drunk.
Oh man.
And it was such a nightmare. And we went to the Czech Republic and we played on a Sunday in Pilsen in a beer bar where the beer was 50 cent. I'm like, okay, this is not going to end well.
Yeah, those Swedes probably like took full advantage of that.
Oh, Jesus. It's like show, no one gave a shit. We played terrible. It was raining outside. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go home. It was the third day of tour. I'm like, I just want to go home. And then it's like, yeah, where do we sleep? Like the promoter who was like high as a kite and drunk. Yeah, you sleep at my place. I'm like, okay, great. So we drove there, one room apartment with a tiny bathroom and a tiny kitchen, three German shepherds, one couch, a lot of like garbage everywhere. I'm like, okay. So I rolled out my sleeping bag, my inflatable mattress, put in some earplugs, and like it was quiet, but the Swedes were going, they were raging with
Oh
with
yeah.
the Czech people. And then it's like it was just like quiet. I'm like, oh, I think I'm falling asleep. And I'm like, dun, 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 dun. And then From Ashes Rise played like in a so loud I was like almost falling out of my sleeping bag. I'm like, oh shit. And then like one of the German shepherds came, lay on my head. I'm like, I need to go out. I'm like, no, I want to sleep. I'm just so tired. I want to sleep. And then like I heard this jibber jabber of them, and like the dude was like, "Hey, you guys want to try magic mushrooms?" And I was literally like, "No!" I was like screaming, like, "Fuck off!" So I took my stuff and went outside and slept on the porch, like under the small balcony in the rain, because I couldn't stand it. I'm like, okay, that's probably one of the worst sleeping situations I ever had.
Yeah, probably the worst sleeping situation we had was actually on a tour, the European tour that Anodyne did in Slovenia,
Okay.
in
Oh yeah.
Ljubljana. Is
Oh
that how
yeah.
they say?
Well,
Yeah, I think I,
typical Ralph Bock Book City. Yeah, I think you played the same place that we played. Yeah.
it was like it used to be like a pool or something like a pool
Yeah.
like building that had like a pool in it, and that's we played there, and then we our overnight accommodations were underground in what used to be a bomb shelter, and they locked you in from the outside. And I was like, this is it, man. This is the end. This is the end of the line for us, you know? And like there was like this gigantic plastic 55-gallon drum filled with piss and like
Oh
these like
man.
mattresses, and there was water on the ground, and it was just like there's like this faint like chemical smell everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, it's over. This is it. That was probably the worst of the worst. And then another worst sleeping arrangement was on another Anodyne tour. We were playing in Norman, Oklahoma, and we played a house show there. And it was the last night that those people were living in that house, right? So like they just destroyed the entire place. Like after the show, the place just got people started kicking holes in the wall, like breaking windows, kicking doors down, and I'm like, that's where we slept that night, right? This completely demolished like house, and then but it wasn't just us. It was whatever like squatter like crust punks that were there were also sleeping there too. So I remember I had a sleeping bag and I was like laying on this like mat on the floor sleeping. And then when I woke up early in the morning, it had to be like 6 o'clock in the morning. I woke up because I was cold. And I was like, what? My fucking sleeping bag, man. Like there's like some Mohawk, like smelly crust kid who had pulled my sleeping bag off of me and put it around him. And he was sleeping at the foot of the mat that I was sleeping at.
Did you kill him?
Oh, no, I kicked him. I was like, dude, the fuck out of here, man. I grabbed my sleeping bag back and I couldn't go to sleep. And I just went out to sit in the van after that. But yeah, that was pretty bad.
I just remember when we played Murphy's, no, it wasn't Murfreesboro. Dude, on that tour in the States, Tombs, Planks, We played, it was like really swampy. It was like super humid. I don't know. There was, damn, it was something really. I would like it was terrible, and we slept at this crust punk house afterwards with like a lot of
Oh,
other
dude.
people. And I remember like I slept on the couch, and they had like 10 or 15 cats in the house.
Oh
And
man.
I remember that Benny went to go take a leak, and he like I was still awake because I couldn't sleep because everybody was snoring. And I remember Benny went back, like went into like cuddle up into a sleeping bag. He was just like, "Fuck." And he said like three cats were in that, like making out and pissing.
Oh,
So, so like I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like this was also yeah, it's like a lot of like strange sleeping situations with a lot of piss involved. Yeah.
see, it's funny because I talked to I talked to Tina about this, like, and she thinks like you go on tour, it's like you're in Van Halen or something like that. It's like every night there's like groupies and chicks, and you know, it's like
It's
it's really not. I mean, she doesn't believe how feral the whole experience used to be.
yeah.
And then when it sort of raised above that level of sleeping in houses and stuff and out in the street or whatever, it's like you always have to drive. Like it's never what people think it is. Really, it's like
Yeah.
there's like usually we stay in a hotel. It's like an hour away from where we played. So we load up, get in the van, drive away, and stay somewhere safe. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
usually outside in the suburbs somewhere. There isn't like wild parties or anything like that.
It's not like you're Mikey Lee Roth. Yeah.
Mike Lee Roth. But yeah, that's those the good old days. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, man. So this year, it's almost in the back. This is the last episode, right, for this year?
Yeah, I'm taking the last couple of weeks off. Just I got a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah.
And this is as good a time as any to wrap up the year, really. We got the Necromaniacs is going to be putting out episodes to the bitter end just because of Nosferatu coming out the last week of the year
Yeah.
in on Christmas Day here.
Yeah.
And we're holding off on doing our best of 2024. As a result of that, we're going to do it in January, which I
Yeah,
think is
okay.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also where we're like Zwiebel and I do the Black Metal Endurance Punk, do our like top 10 lists. We'll also do like 3 episodes, like five records, and then like EPs and honorable mentions. That will also be out in January. So yeah, it's probably better because like right now everything is so wrapped up and then there's still music coming out. I think like when it comes to my horror movies, I have my top five down for this year. I think there's nothing coming out anymore that well, I mean Nosferatu probably could be in there, but I try not to be super enthusiastic about it because I will be disappointed then. But
Yeah.
maybe it will be good, and I hope it will be good. But this year, I mean, you of all people know it. I mean, I haven't been following Necromaniacs that much, but it's been an insane year for good horror movies.
Oh
I
yeah,
think,
definitely.
and it's also been an insane year for releases, man. There were so many good albums this year. So yeah, I'm like I think I saw more good new horror movies, like as so many that I could actually do almost like a top 10. But like I have a solid top five, and I watched all these movies twice at least, and I'm happy with it. Yeah.
What do you got in your top five? I'm going to hold off on mine, but I want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, yeah. Like okay, so number one is Daddy's Head.
Yep, great movie. We just covered
Love
that.
Yeah, yeah. I saw it. I need to hear that episode. Nothing's funny about this movie. It's like a really small setting, just a few cast members, insane, good camera, everything was great. Two, Late Night with the Devil.
Great one.
Three, yeah, three, The Devil's Bath, like the probably best German horror movie in ages. Number four, Azrael. It's total surprise. Didn't think I would like it that much, but like after half of the movie, I'm like, oh, this is insane. Number five is Oddity. And
Yes.
Yes, and honorable mentions Exuma and Salem's Lot. I really liked Salem's Lot. It's not what I expected, but it was a great movie and fun to watch.
Exuma was great. I really
Exuma,
like that one.
yeah.
The pretty much all I did not see Devil's Bath or Azrael yet. So
Yeah.
that's I want to watch them before the end of the year too because that hear a lot of great things about that.
Did you see Hagatsusa? I think, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
saw that.
yeah,
Imagine,
yeah, oh
yeah,
yeah,
imagine Hagatsusa with an improvised like cast
oh
in a more 80s looking setting for Devil's Bath.
okay.
It's a you will love it. Slow paced, lot of conversation, fantastic German foggy setting in the late 18th century, early 19th century. Very gloomy, super spooky. It's like I couldn't believe it's a German movie, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, yeah. I watched
Yeah,
it. I'm like, oh, Mike will love that. And Azrael, really, like in the beginning, I was like, ah, yeah. Then it starts, you're like, okay. But then it turns into this violent, dark, weirdo, like horror movie, occult thing. I'm like, oh, it's so good. It's really good. Yeah.
is it have like kind of like a folk horror sort of element to it?
Yeah, it's pretty much more it's also it plays in the forest and a lot of people don't talk in the beginning. I think there's oh yeah, that's what I said. There's only three sentences spoken in the whole movie. And that's it's also not from like one of the main proprietors of the movie, but there's sort of like weird creatures and there's rituals involved
Oh,
and
okay.
there's also it has like 28 days later also like Walking Dead kind of setting. There's like a camp in the forest and it gets completely bonkers at some point, but in the way that I love being bonkers. It's a really odd movie. Like I didn't expect anything from it. I watched it three times now. I absolutely love it. Yeah,
Yeah, those are the two films that I they're on my list to check out before the end of the year because I have a feeling that I'm gonna really like both of them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like Devil's Bath is so epic, and it's actually like in cinemas now here in Germany, which I'm really proud of. And I'm going to watch it as double feature next week, and it's Devil's Bath, and afterwards it's Hellraiser 2 on a
Oh
big
yeah.
screen, which I have never seen a Hellraiser movie in the theater, so like I'll totally go watch these two there. And yeah, Azrael is just like a total underdog movie. Probably like a top 10 movie for a lot of people, but it's like, I hate funny horror movies, and also this is not funny at all. It's like badass main character, good effects, good creatures. Loved it.
Yeah, I love that, man. Oh, by the way, man, I can see right here on my bookshelf the Hellbound Heart, which you and
Oh,
I were thinking about doing for
yep.
Long Shadows episode.
Oh man, we need to get this down, man. Yeah, we need to start rolling. I mean, like now until March, I don't play any shows until March, and even after that, it's like kind of more slow paced. So yeah, I'll be like, we need to make this a more regular thing when you have your stuff covered, what all the stuff that is happening. Um, we need to do like just like, okay, let's chat and let's record something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The Hellbound Heart, I reread that every few years, and I think it's lately there's been so many different things I've discovered in that book that like or that novella that
Yeah.
I find like a new relevance, to certain aspects of Frank's character,
Yeah.
and I just that's why I'm kind of hot to trot to like talk about that book.
I wanna pitch something too before we
Yeah.
go off air. I mean we're going to do Hellbound Heart. I think it's time to do like another metaphysics off and maybe
Yep.
metaphysics of reason. Would you be down to do something about Swamp Thing?
Oh hell yeah, dude. Yeah.
Because I just recently got like the book, like the Alan Moore book, the collection, and
Oh yeah.
I read it like years ago, and I'm like rereading it right now. I'm like, this is so beyond everything that was going on in comic books back then, like the metaphysics of the story, that it's so dark, it's so philosophical, and I think we need to do a Swamp Thing episode at some point.
Talking about the collection of trades that they
Right,
have.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
the same thing actually. Because I mean I read the comics like back in the day, but I never had the full set. And then
yeah,
a couple of years ago I bought the trade box set. It's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh,
Same
it's so
thing
good.
for Sandman too, actually. I have a trade
Yeah.
box set of that.
Yeah, I got like Danny gave me the omnibus Hellboy collection for my
Oh yeah.
birthday. So I have never read like a Hellboy book, so I need to get into that. But it's just like I'm almost done like reading the Swamp Thing things, and I'm in the beginning I was like, like the old way comics looked back then with just like dots.
Yeah.
Like a lot, the coloring is just dot schemes. I'm like, oh, I don't know. But like in the second book already, it's like it's getting so metaphysical, and like the thought that like the creature has about when he finds out like he's not even the person that died, so he's like this reincarnated but with America. It's so great, man. And I really want to rewatch that show they did for one season because I remember it looked great,
Yeah.
but then they cancel it. I'm like, I never finished it, but I really wish like they could pull it off in the way that like also like I'm right now, and that's what I told you like a while back. Now you're an adult, get a PS5 and play Silent Hill 2, the remake. It's probably blows away every horror movie that we'll watch this year. Like I'm really scared and it's so fantastic. But they also never pull it off to make this into a proper movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, if I got into gaming, it would all be all over, man. Like I would never get a thing done again, but
Yeah.
no, but I've had this like desire to get into it though, really, especially lately, because I've seen like playthroughs of certain things. There's a lot of
Yeah.
like excellent, like Lovecraftian games out there and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the interesting thing about Swamp Thing too is like in the beginning of that series, it was a proper DC comic. Like it wasn't part of Vertigo yet. Like Vertigo hadn't actually didn't really exist. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So there
Yeah.
was like the Vertigo line, which had like Swamp Thing and Sandman and Animal
Yeah.
Man and the Doom Patrol and like all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Constantine comes in
Constantine,
and
yep,
yeah.
exactly. So it was very much like part of that comic book sort of vibe, from the 80s. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating. I feel like that was one of the definite like step up when it came to that sort of content. Like it revolutionized, like partly responsible for revolutionizing comics as an art form, I think.
Yeah. And like going back full circle before we wrap it up here, it's like the hope that I feel in school. Like recently, there's one kid. Like I have an extracurricular course with some kids. It's like board games, because I needed to offer something, and I was like, I will offer like it's 90 minutes of playing board games, and like they need to lock away their cell phones for that, otherwise they cannot take part. So we'll play some music and then we play like Risk or shit like this. And it's
Hmm.
great because like they are like really you need to see like how different like how hard it is for them to put away the phones and actually start talking. But it's so much fun. And the one guy like it's a white kid and is like a bit taller, bit chubby. I'm like, oh, he looks like I looked when I was younger. And he started wearing like rocking like Iron Maiden and Slayer shirts and shit
Oh,
like
okay.
this. And like one day he came in and had like a type of negative shirt on,
Oh,
oh man, there's still hope. And he's like, yeah, like I really like this and I like cosmic horror. I'm like,
oh
what
wow.
what did you just say? It's like, yeah, I just finished my first Lovecraft book and I'm like really into that. It's like I'm like, oh yes, there's there's still hope after all. And he's like, yeah, he's like into comic books now as well. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I always read Spider-Man, but I feel Batman more. But like, I just recently found something which is like really intriguing, and it's like these Lovecraft anime manga
Oh,
books, and
okay.
I'm like,
Yeah.
cool. And he's like, yeah, and I really bought back like a Man Thing. I'm like, oh, so he's going deep, and like, okay, there's still hope.
Yeah. That's the thing, man. It's like regardless we say all these things about them, there's still kids like that everywhere.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
man.
Ralph, thanks for taking time out of your schedule. I know you got to go to a show later. So I
Yeah,
appreciate you coming back on. And
always my pleasure.
all right, man. Thanks for listening, everybody.
The lane is clean and she's never had a sip. Only the blood of the Savior stands. confetti sea, singing country karaoke through the mist of the coffin fog machine. Disco lights drift like flares on my braided hair.